Thank you, Aloha Ba. It is such an honor and a privilege for me to be here. You just don't know how happy I am to be here among you. And I could talk with you for 6 or 8 hours, but we're not going to do it that long. So this is going to go free-flowing. But to get us started, I want to tell you a little bit, just a little bit of a story about how I think this is going to go for us tonight. I have a cousin. His name is Cornell Menking. And he lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico some years ago, and he was getting married. And he was marrying an 8th generation Baha'i. And my cousin Cornell is from the Dallas, Texas area. His father is Howard Menking. And maybe some of you know Howard. He's a Knight of Baha'u'llah. And if you know Howard Menking, he's in his 80s, and he's one of these people who wears his heart on his sleeve. Some people approach things from the intellect, and some people approach things from the heart. Well, he's all heart. And so we flew out to the wedding. It was an outdoor park in Albuquerque. And I was the only person from my cousin's side of the family that was there. His mother, she was a Knight of Baha'u'llah, Joanne Menking. She had died, and I was the only person there from his side of the family. So it was very important for their purposes for me to be there. I got there, and I mean, they just treated me just so wonderfully. And the Persian family, the father had just had a stroke. He was from Waco, Texas, and he came over and started hugging me and kissing me, and I was instantly a member of the family. And so the reason I tell you this story is during the rehearsal dinner, it was in an outdoor it was a clubhouse type thing, and there were about 300 people there. Half of them were Persian Baha'is, and the other half were, Americans. And my uncle got up to speak, and he wanted to tell a story. And he started talking, and he started crying as he was talking. And he was talking about what an honor it was for his family to marry into the family with 8 generations of Baha'is. And he's crying, and 300 people are crying too. They're all crying. But it was very moving time to be there. So he sat down, and, well, how can you top that? Everybody in the room's crying. Mona's uncle got up, and now it was his turn. And he said, I went on my pilgrimage this spring, and the first thing I did on my pilgrimage was to walk to the pilgrim house, and I walked over to the scroll with the Knights of Baha'u'llah listed. And I looked for the name Howard and Joanne Menking. He's looking at my uncle in the eye, and he says, the honor is not yours. The honor is ours. To marry into your family, the family of a Knight of Baha'u'llah. And so at that instant, I knew what it meant to be in heaven. That, for me, is what heaven is. Now, part of what we're going to talk about, this could even relate to that. If you ask most people, well, where's heaven? They're going to say this, and where's hell? They're going to say this. That's not what heaven and hell are. And I think in the course of this little session we have today, this is my goal, is for us to experience a little bit of heaven together. It's what happens between the hearts. And so as we go through this evening, let's try to keep that in mind, and let's try to experience what we know to be heaven. And so, I'll go ahead and begin here. My name is Scott Kinsey. I live in Indiana. My mom is Lou Kinsey. She lives in Seminole. And I'm here for the spring break with my kids. I've got 5 kids, 13-year-old triplets. And I used to say they were for sale. And they get cheaper every year. But I'm not allowed to say that anymore. So we're here in Orlando with my triplets and my wife. And so I'm going to give a little talk today, and this is the topic: the basic problem of mankind we should be working to solve. Now, my preference is to have this interactive. This is free-flowing. I can talk, but I think it would be much more beneficial if you have a question or you want to say something, feel free to talk. But as we get started here, I want you to know that this talk... I'm sorry?
Point it there.
Oh, it didn't need to. Yeah. I pointed here and it probably... Did it work? Look at that. I pointed over there. Yeah, okay, it works. Yeah. Okay. This talk is based on a statement from the Universal House of Justice on the cause of material suffering in the world. Now, are you aware that the Universal House of Justice issued a statement on the cause of material suffering in the world? I'm not sure that many of you are aware of this. So we're going... I'm sorry?
What is
The Universal House of Justice is the governing body of the Baha'is. It's the head governing body for the faith. And if you have questions, feel free to jump in.
How it came to be? How did the House of Justice come to be?
Would you like to tell him? I'm not sure I would be able to tell the whole story.
It was ordained by Baha'i,
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Yeah.
By all the people in the world. And elected by all the Baha'is in the world.
Right.
So, democratic.
Yeah. Now, this particular statement, I'm going to... Do we have another microphone, Jeremiah, or not? It's on now. Okay, this is the portion of it. I would like to ask for volunteers to read this for me. You look like a willing reader.
We must not allow ourselves to forget the continuing, appalling burden of suffering under which millions of human beings are always groaning. The principal cause of this suffering, which one can witness wherever one turns, is the corruption of human morals and the prevalence of prejudice, suspicion, hatred, untrustworthiness, selfishness, and tyranny among men. What they desperately need is to know how to live their lives. They need to know who they are, to what purpose they exist, and how they should act towards one another. And once they know the answers to these questions, they need to be helped to gradually apply these answers to everyday behavior.
You know, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but you'll see that the Universal House of Justice is telling us that people need answers to basic questions of life. Who am I? To what purpose do I exist? And how should I act towards others? And it goes on to say, once we give the answers to those basic questions, we must help people to gradually learn how to apply the answers to everyday behavior. Now that's an important step right there. I see we've got some parents in here with kids. Anybody who's raised children, and do we impart knowledge on a child and have them incorporate that in their lives? Yeah, it hasn't worked that way in my experience. So that second part, gradually helping a person to learn how to apply these answers to everyday behavior, is critical. Okay, would you like to read?
It is to the solution of this basic problem of mankind that the greater part of all our energy and resources should be directed.
Read that one more time, if you don't mind.
It is to the solution of this basic problem of mankind that the greater part of all our energies and resources should be directed.
Now that, to me, is our marching orders, right there. We are told that the greater part of our energies are to be spent helping people to answer those basic questions of life. Who am I? To what purpose do I exist? And how should I act towards others? How many people could answer those questions if you asked them? Do you know who you are? Do you know what your purpose is? Do you know how you should act towards others? Would anybody like to venture a thought? Who am I? We're created to know people and to worship God. To know God and to worship Him. Go ahead.
True loss is for him whose days have been spent in utter ignorance of his true self. Baha'u'llah.
Now that to me is what hell would be. To live my life and to not know why I was here. And if I didn't know why I was here, how can I act in ways that are in furtherance of the reason that I was here? Does anybody know Brandy Watson by any chance? Brandy Watson was the first director of the Louis Gregory Baha'i Institute in South Carolina, and he's one of my 3 partners on this program we have called Successful Self-Direction. He likes to tell the jail inmates that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And I think that really does sum up most people in this life. So it's very important that people need to understand what it means, what their true self is. Why are they here?
Praise be to him who hath fashioned this new era, this age of majesty, where the realities of all things can be exposed to view. Now are clouds of bounty raining down, and gifts of loving Lord are clearly manifest. For both the seen and the unseen worlds have been illumined.
Thank you. I'm sorry? Yes. Now Abdu'l-Baha says that the realities of all things can be exposed to view. Now are clouds of bounty raining down, and gifts of the loving Lord are clearly manifest. So that would include, if it's all things, that would include the physical world and would also include the spiritual world. It is possible through the manifestation of Baha'u'llah for us now to see and know about the spiritual world along with the physical world. And here's a quote that I think says the same thing from the Bible.
For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made.
Does that say the same thing to you? I think that's, for me, that says the same thing as what Abdu'l-Baha says. All things, the realities of all things are now clearly visible for us to see. So we go back to the questions that the Universal House of Justice said we must help people to understand. Question number 1, who am I? We've had some ideas that have been brought forth. Anybody like to share another idea about an answer to that question, who am I? An intellectual being and a spiritual being. Very good. I would add one more. A physical being, that's right. You're playing right into the next few slides there. Okay. Who would like to read this? I'd like to have people help me. Would you mind?
In man, there are 2 natures, his spiritual or higher nature,
Okay.
and his material or lower nature. Dr. Baha.
Thank you. So, first of all, we know that who am I? I am a human being with how many natures? Two natures. A higher nature and a lower nature. Right?
In one, he approaches God.
Which would be which one? The spiritual or higher nature.
In the other, he lives for the world alone, Abdu'l-Baha.
Which would be the lower nature. Now that's pretty simple, isn't it? Okay. Who else can I get to read here? One of you would like to read? Thank you. Now, we know we have two natures. Now let's look at this monkey wrench.
There are in the world of humanity three degrees, Abdu'l-Baha.
3 degrees. So now we know we have two natures and we have 3 degrees. Okay? Thank you. So each one of these circles will represent one of the degrees. Now the first circle, we'll put the word matter. Okay? Representing the world of matter. The physical world, right? I am a physical being and I live in the world of matter, don't I? So, was it you that added the physical being? This is the physical part here. We have a physical body. Okay? The second circle, what matters to me, represents what? I'm sorry? My needs. Actually, each one of the levels have needs. My concerns. I'm sorry? Spiritual. Actually, that's the third one. What really matters is the spiritual one. I'm sorry? Ego. Actually, we'll show that the selfish part is the first circle, the physical circle. Yes. Your choices, and you have the ability to choose from what part of your being. You say, there you go. Your mind, right? Okay, so the first circle represents the body. Nobody will disagree with you. You have a body. The second circle represents what matters to me, the mind. You have a body and you have a mind, right? Now the third circle represents your spiritual nature. Now in our program, we have a program working in the jails and we call it body, mind, and heart. Okay, a spiritual person might call it body, mind, and spirit. Does anybody know what Abdu'l-Baha called these 3 degrees? I'm sorry? Right. Do you know what Abdu'l-Baha called these 3 different degrees? He might have called it that, but that's not the particular. I do know that he called this the body. And I do know that he called this the soul. And I do know that he called this the spirit. Okay? And I do know that at one time he also called this the rational soul, comma, the human intelligence. Okay? So we're talking about body, mind, and spirit. And Abdu'l-Baha said body, soul, and spirit. Somebody said free will. We have free will. And what you said really is talking about free will. And I think I have this later in my charts, but I'm going to explain it now. Abdu'l-Baha says that the mind is the intermediary between the body and the spirit. Okay? And through the power of free will, the mind wills you to act from the body, or it wills you to act from the spirit. It's one or the other. You either act from the body or you act from the spirit. It's one or the other. Okay? Now, When you combine the mind plus the body, the mind willing you to act from the body, we're now talking about the lower nature. That is the lower nature. When we're told we have 2 natures and 3 degrees, you put them together like this. The lower nature is the mind willing you to act from the body. Mind plus body equals lower nature. When the mind wills you to act from the spirit, that equals the higher nature. It's the mind willing you to act from the spirit. Does that make sense? Does that give rise to any questions? It makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. Now, who do I want to pick on here? If I were to ask this question, what is life? Would anybody have an answer that they could just throw at me? What is life?
A series of tests and preparations.
Okay. Good answer. Any other ideas about the answer to that question? What is life?
That's what really matters.
It's right. That does really matter. Now, what I would say in this program that we have working with offenders in jail, the program says that life is a series of reactions to stems that we encounter. Now, a stem stands for a stimulus, okay? And can I pick on you? Boom! You have a stem, right? Now, you have to react to that stem in some way. You're going to react from your body, your lower nature, or you're going to react from your higher nature, from your spirit, okay? So life is a series of reactions to stems that we encounter. You put them all together and that forms your life pattern, okay? So with every stem how many stems do we have in a day, by the way? Millions? All right. Stem. With every stem, 3 things happen in your reaction. Okay? What is the first part of your reaction to the stem? The first thing is what? That's the third thing. What's the first thing? The third thing. What? That's the second thing. Okay, Roger got it. The first thing is you see it. Okay? I won't come over again, but he saw it. How were you able to see this stem? You have physical eyes, right? Physical eyes to see a physical stem. Okay? Now, some stems are not physical in nature. Has anybody not done their taxes yet? Huh? Is anybody's wife mad at them? Oh, no, I don't want to do that one. There's an example that's not a physical stem you don't see with your eyes, but nonetheless, it's a stem that you come from a different... I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So some stems are physical, some stems are not non-physical. Okay, what's the second part of that reaction? You said it. You feel something. Somebody said that. Okay. Now, you didn't seem too worried when I came at you with my fist. He said, I can take him. Is that what you're thinking? I can take him. It's like, I can take him. He's big guy. Okay. Okay. So you felt something, though, okay? So you see the stem, you feel the stem, and the last thing is you what? You act. You act on the stem. Okay, now each one of these levels has different powers. You said that our purpose for existence is to know and love or worship God, right? Each one of these levels have knowing powers and loving powers. And we'll see, as we go through here, you see the stem with your knowing powers. We call that K powers. It stands for your knowing powers. In the case of a physical stem, you have physical eyes. It's part of the five senses. The knowing power of the physical level are the five senses. Okay? You feel by using your loving powers. Okay? Using your loving powers determines how you're going to feel about the stem that you're confronted with. And when you act, you combine your K and L powers. They're called your candle powers. We can also call it candelicity. It's like electricity. If you think about it, electricity has dual purposes. If it's cold, electricity can provide heat. If it's dark, electricity can provide light. So the way this works is you combine your knowing and your loving powers, and it forms your powers to act on the stem. Now you were trusting, and you knew fairly comfortable that I wasn't going to hit you. I wasn't going to execute on it. But in a different circumstance, you might feel something different, right? So, but the point is, you have to see, you have to feel, and you have to act on every stem that you encounter. Now, if I take this and I throw this at you, okay, it didn't go as well as rehearsal, did it? What was you just? If I take this and I throw this, I'm sorry? Okay. What's your name? Okay. All right. Okay. Give you the what? Oh. Well, he wasn't too worried about it. Who plays baseball? We throw it over here. Look at that. Huh? All right. Combis. Okay. Now there is your stem. You saw it, you felt, and you acted. Now, imagine this is not a dry erase marker. This is a stick of dynamite. With a longer fuse. Okay. Or imagine this is a dart with a sharp point on the end of it. Right? You'll feel something different than if somebody's throwing a dry erase marker at you, right? So the point is, you have to feel something and you have to act. With every stem that you encounter, it's nothing more than a pass-fail test. If you act from your higher nature, you succeed. If you act from your lower nature, you fail. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And if there are any questions, feel free to jump in here. So let's move on to the second question. To what purpose do I exist? Anybody want to venture some answers here? Why do I exist? Okay. 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 Good.
To interact with others, to attain spiritual virtues, thus we grow.
Okay.
In ways as being honest and truthful. And
Okay. Good. How do we attain spiritual virtues?
through our interactions with others.
Okay. That's part of it. I'm sorry? Okay. Some of us develop spiritual virtues through our trials and tribulations. Does everybody? Right? Somebody had a comment? Okay. Would it be a fair statement to say that for us to develop spiritual virtues, we should be acting in maybe our higher nature instead of our lower nature. If we act in our lower nature, does that help us to acquire spiritual virtues?
For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal.
Okay. Go ahead.
The source of all evil is for man to turn away from his Lord and set his heart on things ungodly.
Okay. Once again, that would be the lower nature, right? Go ahead.
Let us turn our hearts away from the world of matter and live in the spiritual world. It alone can give us freedom.
Do we have a consensus here that we have two natures? We have a higher nature and we have a lower nature. We have 3 degrees, body, mind, and spirit. That our purpose in life is to learn how to act from the higher nature. Right? And not how to act from the lower nature. Are we all on the same page? Are there any questions about that? We're all on the same page. Okay. Now, for my next question for you, which is the third question that the Universal House of Justice says we need to give people basic answers to, is how do we do that? How do we act from our higher natures? So, does it matter whether you like the person or not as to whether you should act from your higher nature or not?
No.
How often should we aspire to act from our higher nature?
All the time.
All the time.
Do not busy yourselves in your own concerns. Let your thoughts be fixed upon that which will rehabilitate the fortunes of mankind and sanctify the hearts and souls of men. This can best be achieved through pure and holy deeds, through a virtuous life and a goodly behavior.
Okay. Once I know the answers to these questions, how can I be helped to gradually apply these answers to everyday behavior? So we've all agreed that we should learn how to act from our higher nature, that that's a purpose of life, is to learn how to act from our higher nature, right? The question then, as the Universal House of Justice said, how can I be helped to gradually apply these answers to everyday behavior?
O Son of Light, forget all save me and commune with my spirit. This is the essence of my command. Therefore turn unto it.
So one way we can learn how to act from our higher nature is to do what? Forget everything else? Turn to God. Okay? If we ask God to help us handle our stems, He tells us that He will do that. Want to read that, Roger?
Strive then with heart and soul to distinguish yourselves by your deeds.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. So He's also telling us that we need to do what? Walk the talk. Walk the talk. We need to act. Somebody once said that even God won't tie your shoes without you. Right? It's one thing to have knowledge, it's another thing to implement it into your lives. Okay? Why don't you read this?
Treasure the companionship of the righteous and his truth, all fellowship with the ungodly.
Okay, so another way that we can learn how to act from our higher nature is to do what? I'm sorry? Hang around with higher nature people, right? Or righteous people. And by the same token, to not hang around with who? Ungodly people, right? Okay, would you like to read this? You mind?
The heaven of divine wisdom is illumined with the two luminaries of consultation and compassion.
So we can see that divine wisdom certainly would help us learn how to act from our higher nature, right? Is obtained through two things, consultation and compassion. Now, consultation, and I do this, if I have an issue that I'm dealing with and I'm trying to connect with God to help me, I still talk to people in my life. I consult with people on this earth in addition to God. But it probably matters who we consult with, doesn't it? What type of people must we consult with if we're trying to figure out how to act in our higher natures? Higher nature people. If you go to a lower nature person to try to consult with how to handle an issue, is that going to work? So, once again, I'm just trying to give you some ideas on how to learn how to act from your higher nature. And compassion. That is the loving power of the Spirit. We call it selflessness, as opposed to the loving power of the physical body, which is the opposite of selflessness. It's selfishness. Okay? So, according to Baha'u'llah, for us to learn how to act from our higher natures, we need to also be involved with consultation, and we must have a selfless outlook and selfless heart. Okay. I'm missing a chart, Jeremiah. Let me see if I can get it. I need to find that here, this one. It's number 20. There it is. Whoops. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to get to the meat of this. Does anybody have any questions thus far? We're going to talk about practical, from a practical standpoint, how does this work? This lower level here represents the physical body. Okay? This second level here represents the mind. And the third level represents the spirit. We can see that the two natures are listed here. And each one of these levels have different degrees, body, mind, and heart. Each one of these levels have purposes. Each one of these levels have knowing powers. Each one of these levels have loving powers. And each one of these powers have action. So I'm going to just go through this kind of quickly. And we're going to talk about a couple stems. And I'm going to show you how we can take these wonderful writings and apply them in our lives. So did anybody have a good stem today? Huh? The dinner was a stem? Oh, well, I meant one where you had to wrestle between acting from your higher nature and your lower nature. When I said a good stem, I mean a meaty stem. Okay, that was a higher nature. That wasn't a stem. That was a delightful spiritual. That was heaven. The meal was heaven. Who had a good stem? Anybody? Nobody? What you got? Okay. We said we have thousands of stims every day, right? Okay. I had one. I drove yesterday from Indiana with my kids in the car, drove up here, rushed from Orlando to get here, and forgot to pack something. Guess what I forgot to pack? Black socks. Who said that? I had white socks. I don't have any black socks. I don't have any time. I got no black socks. That's a stem. I saw something. Dang, I got no socks. Okay. I felt something. Dang, I was mad. I was worried. I had, okay. So we're down here in this level here. What's my emotion? Exasperation, right? Is that a positive emotion or a negative emotion? Huh? It's what? It's a lower, it's a negative emotion. I don't want to be unhappy. So what do? Well, the way this works is I look to see if there's any solution from the body level to handle this stem. Now what I'm doing, I'm trying to formulate with my action, with my knowing and loving powers. Okay, there's two ways that the body acts to handle stems. One of them here is this Mr. Piggy with either banana cream pie or a coconut cream pie. What do you think that illustrates, the way the body acts? It's indulgent. It stands for trap. T-R-A-P, take and repeat anything pleasant. Okay? Well, does the body act that way? Sure it does. Now, I don't want pie. I want a box of ding-dongs. Okay? That's my trap, okay? Okay, so I don't have any socks, so the body can act to, okay, I'm going to eat a box of ding-dongs. Is that going to solve my stem? Doesn't solve it, does it? They taste good. Well, the first 4, 5. Does that solve the stem for me? Does it remove the negative emotion? Sure it does. Okay? So is there anything you can do that's pleasant from this level here to deal with the stem? No, there's not. And? Oh, by the sky. I got not enough time. Okay, now the second two here represent the other way that the body acts. It's an acronym SPUFF. Stands for Stop or Prevent Unpleasantness Through Fight or Flight. Right? Okay, now I'm mad because I got no socks. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? How can I fight the situation? How does that fight the problem? Might be able to flee the problem that way. Well, who other ideas? How can I fight this? Ignore what? I'll tell you how I handled the stem, baby. What?
Someone that has it, like.
Steal them, okay. Yes. Yell at your children. And this happens a lot. Anybody had a rough day at home, at the office, at work? They come home, they're mad, and the kids are starting to do this and that, or your spouse is in on you, and you go off on them, right? Now, you're fighting. Is that going to solve your stem? Now, that's going to create another one. Now, you got a stem with whoever you're yelling at, right? So there's no way to fight the problem. Can I flee the problem? How can I stop and prevent this unpleasantness through flight? I'm sorry? Positive. Well, that's actually up here. Is there any way I can flee the problem and just, okay, I'm not going to deal with it? Huh? Okay. Other ideas? Watch a movie. Okay, I'm going to go buy a 12-pack of beer. And I'm going to get drunk. By gosh, this sock problem is a major crisis in my life. I choose to flee it. I'm going to get drunk tonight. Does that solve the stem? Does that remove the negative emotions? Does it remove the negative emotions? It sure does. 12 beers. I'm not thinking at all anymore. I'm passed out. The negative emotion is gone. Does it successfully remove the emotion? Okay. Okay, that may be up here. Okay. Okay, so it can remove the stem, the negative emotions, but they'll be back the next day, right? And you've got other ones. Guess what? Oh, I missed the talk. You know that. So is there any way I can flee the problem? How? Well, that's actually up here. I'm still on this level here. Okay? Is there any way from the lower nature to flee the problem? Okay. Dang, I'm going to have to tell you what I did before I even finished the thing, right? Huh? You see these? I asked my wife if she had any black hose. So I'm wearing, these are knee-high black hose for women, and let me tell you, they feel great. So, now, I didn't flee the problem. Heck no. I didn't steal these socks either. I asked her if I could have. I didn't fight the problem. I'm going to get some ding-dongs tonight, though, but that's not to get rid of the stem. You know? But yes.
You could have bought some black dye and dyed your white socks.
Yeah. The little sock story is just a metaphor for thousands of other stems and perhaps even more significance. But the point is here, there is no action from the body to solve the stem. The stem has the negative emotions. And so what I've actually done here, I'm taking the action you said, right there. Start thinking. This is the acronym, it's LIFT, it stands for lift. And it stands for look into the future of things. We as human beings have the ability to think before we act, right? And so now, before I haven't eaten my box of ding-dongs, I haven't blown off the talk, I haven't yelled at my kids, because none of them will solve my stem, will they? So I've looked into the future of things, and I know that there is no solution down here. So this is my cue to look for my solution in a different place. Once again, the mind level here wills you to act from the body or wills you to act from the spirit. And so there is no action down here. Can anybody think of any other way that the body can act down here other than to take and repeat anything pleasant or to stop and prevent unpleasantness through fight or flight? That's it. That's all the body can do. Well, mine would probably be gray. It'd be gray. It'd go good with black, I guess. But, okay. All right. Now, so we know that the solution has to act from my higher nature needs to come up from here. This is a very important step right here, looking into the future of things. We have this ability when you combine, well, I won't go into that. Animals can't do that. Can a dog say, okay, if I go fetch this Frisbee, I'm going to get a doggy treat from my master? Can a dog do that? Sort of.
But not, can't think about it tomorrow. He says, if I do this today, I'll get it tomorrow.
A dog can do that? You can train a dog to do that, but he certainly doesn't have the human intelligence or anything that approaches the human intelligence, okay? So I want to tell you a story about a guy in our jail class once. He's a kid. He's like 18, 19 years old, and he comes into one of our classes in the jail, and he's mad. he comes in, it's about the 5th class, and everybody else had already been in a bunch of classes, and he's just mad he's in there. And we said, what's going on? He said, I just had my video conferencing with the judge. They don't even take some of them to court now. They just do the telecommunications to have his court hearing. And so I said to him, I said, well, how did it go for you? And he said, I told the judge, I got to clean this up. I told the judge I can't clean it up. You can imagine what he told the judge to do. And I said, well, how'd that work for you? He told him, I'm going to tell the judge to suck something in graphic language. I told the judge that he could do that. I've told this story probably 50 times, and I've never felt like I couldn't tell it, but I do now. But you get the idea. So he said, how'd that work for you? And he said, well, the prosecutor was in there, and he said, Your Honor, it seems like we have a young man with an attitude. And so he said, oh, yeah, what happened? He said, I told the prosecutor he could do the same thing. So we then said to him, well, how'd that work for you? And so he said, the next time I'm in court, I'm going to throw a chair at the judge. And he was, I'm going to throw a chair at the judge. And so it really illustrates this perfectly. So we said, let's talk about that, okay? Now, you're a little, he weighs 150 pounds. He walks into court. Oh, yeah, he's got shackles on. His arms, wrist, and his feet. He's got shackles. He sits at the table in a chair that weighs at least twice the big, ornate chairs. He sits down in a chair, and he's going to stand up in shackles. He's going to reach over and grab a chair that weighs twice as much as him. He's going to lift that chair in shackles and throw it at a judge. Oh, yeah, he's on a raised bench. So he's going to throw it up and hit a judge. And oh, yeah, the bailiff's there with a gun. So he's going to do all this stuff before what happens? So there's a really good example of looking in the future thinking, well, he's not going to do it. But if he could have done it at that moment, he would have. Because he wasn't looking into the future of things. We have the ability to do this as human beings. On every stem that we encounter, we have the ability to think before we act. And once again, if you act up here, you succeed. If you act down here, you fail. We had another guy in our class in the jail, and he was a backwards kind of guy. He wore those glasses that tint when you're inside. They're blue, and he's called Blue Blocker. The kids made fun of him in the jail. He went back into his unit at the jail. They're called pods with about 50 inmates. And somebody threw a spit wad and hit the guard in the back of the neck with a spit wad. And he had a stem. The guard did. He turned around, and he is mad. And he wants to stop or prevent unpleasantness by fight with who? Who is the guard going to fight? Which one? He doesn't know who did it. So what does he do? He decides to fight them all. And how does he fight them all? He puts all 50 people in lockdown. Okay? They had to go to their individual cells. Now you can imagine how mad all the inmates, 49 of them, were getting punished for nothing that they did, right? And so people were getting mad, and they went to this guy named Blue Blocker, who had been in our class, and he put him in his cell, and as he went into his cell, he turned around and he smiled at the guard, and he said, I want to thank you for giving me a chance to work on my higher nature. And he walked into his jail cell, and you know what? He took all the power away from the guard. Because the guard is trying to push buttons, and the buttons weren't there. And so these are good examples of we really can think before we act. And if we see the whole picture, we can start seeing things differently too. And if you see things differently, it causes you to feel differently. And if you feel differently, it causes you to act in a different way. Okay? Does anybody know what's on the back of a dollar bill? The pyramid. And what's on the top of the pyramid on the dollar bill? The eye. What kind of eye is it? The all-seeing eye. It used to be called the eye of God. But, you know, we guess it can't violate the separation of church and state, so we'll call it the all-seeing eye or the all-knowing eye. But it really does illustrate. I lost my other picture. Oh, there we go. If you're at the bottom of the pyramid, what is your vision? Well, you have some vision. You're able to see one side of the pyramid, aren't you? Right? If you're where the all-seeing eye is, what is your vision? You're able to see all sides of the pyramid, right? So, which is the best vantage point to see things? From the top of the pyramid. This is what gives us that top vantage point. And if you understand that you have two natures, you have 3 degrees, you have knowing powers, you have purposes, you have loving powers in action. Once you learn this, then you can start to think about how to act in ways that will lead you to happiness and success. It's interesting you say that. I'm going to give you a 2-part verse that goes like this, which dovetails that. Imagine a scale of justice here. And on this side of the scale of justice is a jug with the word faults. Okay? And on this side of the scale of justice is a jug with the word virtues. Okay? 2-part verse that goes like this. Do not make light of your failings, saying, what are they to me? For a jug fills drop by drop. So the fool becomes brimful in folly. The second part of the verse goes like this. Do not make light of your virtues, saying, what are they to me? For a jug fills drop by drop. So the wise man becomes brimful in virtue. Now what that means simply is this. Every stim that you encounter is nothing more than a pass-fail test. If you pass the test and act from your higher nature, you get to put a drop in your virtues jug. Okay? If you fail the test of the stim, you must put a drop in your faults jug. Okay? So the question is, where are you in your life today? Do your faults exceed your virtues? Or do your virtues exceed your faults? Now, if I ask a group of guys or kids in the jail, they'll go like this. Where are you today in your life? They go like this, and some of them say the floor is not low enough. My faults exceed my virtues, okay? And there was a time when I was about here. Not about here. And so then after one class in the jail, we tell the kid, so where are you today? They go from here in one class to about here. Now, where am I today? Well, there's where I am. I'm right there. Where do I want to be? I want to be here. But this is pretty good. My virtues exceed my faults. Now, why do you think that these kids go from here to here after one class? Is it because they've changed their actions?
They got the idea of it.
Other thoughts? They started to see things differently, right? They learn the whole picture, the whole rules of the game of life. And so it starts by seeing things. And as you were saying, understand that it's just the starting point. As long as you're going in the right direction, it's all good, right? So it doesn't happen like this. It happens like this. And you are at a particular place in your life today. And so once you start to learn how to do this, some of you already know how to do it, some of you don't. But as you learn how to handle each stem in your life from your higher nature, and you start putting those drops in your virtues jug, you turn around and you became something that you can't believe, really. And it makes everything that you went through purposeful. Questions? Does this give rise to any questions? Does this make sense? What you're hearing? Does anybody have any other stem that they want to go through? This works with kids. And I learned this program when my triplets were 5 years old, I think. So I've had a laboratory in my house where I've gotten to experience this. And I can give you some examples about how this works. One of our daughters, Monica is her name, call her Momo. She was in her lower nature about something. She's 7 years old at the time. And she had to go upstairs into her bedroom for time out. She stomped up those stairs and she went into her bedroom. And she comes back downstairs about 10 minutes later. Daddy, I'm in my higher nature now. So I said, oh yeah? Let's talk about that. So she had to stomp back upstairs to get in her higher nature. 10 more minutes later, she floats down the stairs. She has this angelic smile on her face, and she says, Daddy, I'm in my higher nature now. And she really was. Okay? Yeah. I would give you two answers myself. Number one, that these truths that we're talking about are eternal truths that apply to all of the manifestations of God. And if a person doesn't know these truths, wherever their background comes from, they need to learn these truths and apply them to their own history and experience. That applying these truths from whatever source they started will lead them to happiness and success. The second point that I wanted to make is that each of us, and all of the religions teach this, that we're each responsible for finding our truth out ourselves. It's called the independent investigation of truth. And each one of the religions teach that. If you look for it, that spiritual principle is there, that I cannot tell you what the truth is. You can't see the truth through my eyes. You have to see the truth through your eyes. As Christ said, for blessed are those who see with their own eyes and hear with their own ears. And so I know that we could spend a lot more time talking about that, but I would simply go back to say this, that this is the set of eternal principles that if we learn how to apply them in our lives, the act of applying them will lead us to happiness and success. And this knowledge, though, would this knowledge, if you apply it to your old training, would it not help you to understand your past as far as your religious upbringing? To have the knowledge that we've talked about tonight, and to apply that to your upbringing, where perhaps the older practices and the way that the rituals of the practicing your religion has gotten a little away from what the messenger meant? Well, the answer, going back to what we originally started talking, the Universal House of Justice has told us that we should be spending the greater part of our energies and resources giving people the answers to these basic questions of life. Who am I? To what purpose do I exist, and how should I act towards others? This is what we need to be spending our energies doing, is to help provide this knowledge to people who don't have access to it.